I have one question for you: how much of your life is actually yours? Every thought, every decision, every action, how much of it is truly coming from you, and how much of it is just a reaction to what society expects? Most people don't even realize they're trapped in an invisible system, constantly chasing approval, constantly looking for validation from people who wouldn't even notice if they disappeared. And the worst part? They think it's normal. They think it's just how life is. But what if everything you believe about success, happiness, and self-worth has been carefully designed to keep you chasing something that will never satisfy you? What if you've been conditioned, programmed since the day you were born to need approval, to seek validation, to fear rejection more than anything else? Imagine waking up tomorrow and suddenly nobody in the world cares about what you do. No praise, no criticism, no opinions. Would you still dress the way you do? Would you still pursue the same career? Would you still post on social media? Would you still want the things you say you want? Be honest. Because the answer to that question reveals something terrifying. Most people wouldn't know what to do with themselves. They wouldn't know who they are without the constant feedback loop of approval and validation. That's how deep the addiction runs.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
And yes, it is an addiction. The brain treats social approval the same way it treats a drug. When someone likes your post, compliments your work, or praises your achievements, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that makes gambling and drugs so addictive. That's why you keep checking your phone, why you care so much about what people think, why you feel an almost physical need to be seen as successful, attractive, or important. It's not just psychological, it's biological. And just like any addiction, it controls you without you even realizing it. But here's where it gets worse. Unlike actual drugs, which at least give you a temporary high, approval addiction never truly satisfies you. The moment you get validation, the clock resets. You need more. You need the next hit. You need the next achievement, the next compliment, the next proof that you are worthy. And the cycle never ends. Because the moment you base your self-worth on external validation, you become a puppet. Your happiness is no longer yours. It belongs to others. And that's exactly how society wants it. Think about it. Why do companies spend billions of dollars on advertising? Why do you think social media is designed to keep you scrolling, liking, and comparing? Because the more you need approval, the easier you are to control. If they can make you believe that your worth comes from status, appearance, and success, they can sell you anything. They can keep you working, consuming, and chasing things that don't actually make you happy. They can keep you trapped in a system where your entire life is just a performance for others. But can you escape? Can you live without approval? Can you act without validation? Can you make decisions that go against expectations? Most people think they can, but when the moment comes, they hesitate. Because breaking free from this system means doing something terrifying. It means being willing to disappoint people. It means being willing to be misunderstood, judged, even ridiculed. It means choosing your own path, even if no one claps for you. So let's test it. Right now, think of one thing you want to do, but haven't because you're afraid of judgment. Maybe it's changing careers. Maybe it's speaking your mind. Maybe it's admitting that you don't actually want the life you've been working toward. Whatever it is, hold it in your mind. Now, imagine doing it. Imagine making that decision, taking that action, fully committing to it. And now, imagine the reaction. Imagine the disappointment, the criticism, the people who will roll their eyes, who will talk behind your back, who will tell you that you're crazy. How does that feel? Does it make you hesitate? Does it make you want to stay where you are? If so, then congratulations, you've just found the invisible chains that are holding you back. But those chains were never real. The people whose approval you seek, they don't care as much as you think they do. They're too busy worrying about their own approval addiction to truly care about your life. The judgment you fear, it's temporary. It fades. But the regret of living a life that isn't yours, that stays forever. So now, the choice is yours. Keep chasing approval. Keep living for others. Keep playing a game that can never be won, or step outside of it. Choose yourself. Choose a life where your worth isn't dependent on likes, praise, or validation. Choose freedom. But be warned, freedom comes at a cost. It means facing discomfort. It means going through withdrawal. It means learning to be okay with silence, with rejection, with being misunderstood. Most people won't do it. Most people will hear this, feel inspired for a moment, and then go right back to scrolling, comparing, chasing. Because breaking free isn't easy. But those who do, they get something far more valuable than approval. They get peace. They get authenticity. They get a life that actually belongs to them. So are you ready to take the test? Not just in theory, but in reality. Are you ready to make a decision that isn't based on what others think? Because if you are, then everything changes. But if you're not, then at least now you know your life isn't truly yours. And the real question is, are you okay with that? Most people hear this and think, yeah, I know I care too much about what others think, but it's not that bad. But it is. It's worse than you realize. Because this addiction to approval is not just shaping your decisions, it's shaping your identity. It dictates what you wear, what you say, what you pursue, what you suppress, and even what you allow yourself to dream about. It turns you into a version of yourself that is optimized for acceptance, not for truth. And the cost of that? It's everything. It's the real you, buried under layers of performance, fear, and compromise. Think about all the things you've wanted to do but didn't because you were afraid of how it would look. Maybe it was a career you didn't choose because it wasn't practical. Maybe it was a passion you ignored because it wasn't impressive. Maybe it was a way of living that you secretly envied but rejected because it didn't fit within the expectations placed on you. How much of your life has been lived for others? And how much of it has actually been yours? The scary part is that most people never break free. They don't even realize they're trapped. They go through life believing they're making their own choices, never questioning why their desires seem to line up so neatly with what society values. They chase money, status, popularity, thinking these things will bring fulfillment, but all they get is the temporary high of external validation, followed by the inevitable crash of emptiness. Because the truth is, no amount of approval will ever be enough. You will never reach a point where you feel completely validated, where you can finally relax and say, I've made it. That moment doesn't exist. The more you seek validation, the more you need it. It's a hole that never fills, a thirst that only gets worse the more you drink. And the worst part, you might not even realize it's happening. You might think you're just being responsible or realistic, when in reality, you're just afraid. Afraid of standing out, afraid of failing in front of others, afraid of being judged. But what's worse, being judged or living a life that isn't yours? If you weren't scared of judgment, what would you do differently? Would you quit your job? Would you stop pretending to care about things you don't? Would you finally do the thing you've been putting off for years? And if the answer is yes, then what does that tell you? It tells you that you're living in a cage. A cage built out of expectations, opinions, and imaginary consequences that feel real but aren't. Because here's the truth: most people are too busy worrying about themselves to care about you. The judgment you fear. It lasts for a moment. But the regret of living a life that isn't yours, that lasts forever. So now you have a choice. Keep playing the game. Keep chasing approval. Keep living for others, or step outside of it. Choose the discomfort of authenticity over the comfort of conformity. Choose a life that belongs to you, even if it means losing the applause, because the applause was never real to begin with. Most people don't realize how deep this runs until it's too late. They wake up one day, years have passed, and they don't even recognize the person in the mirror. They've spent so much time chasing approval, shaping themselves into what they think will be accepted, that they've lost all connection to what they actually want. It starts small: choosing the right career, saying the right things, fitting into the right mold, and before they know it, they're stuck in a life that looks successful from the outside but feels empty on the inside. But by then, the fear of change is stronger than the discomfort of staying the same. So they stay. They convince themselves that this is just what life is, that everyone feels this way, that it's normal to live for the expectations of others. And the worst part, they don't even question it. They don't stop to ask if the life they're living is actually theirs, or if it was assigned to them by a system designed to keep them obedient, predictable, and easy to control. The system wants you to need approval because approval keeps you in line. It makes you easy to manipulate, easy to sell to, easy to pressure into working, buying, and living in a way that benefits others more than it benefits you. The second you stop needing approval, you become dangerous. You stop buying things to impress people. You stop chasing careers that drain you just because they sound impressive. You stop shaping your identity around what's acceptable and start building it around what's real. And that kind of freedom scares people. Because when you stop playing the game, it forces others to question why they're still in it. That's why people who break free are often met with resistance. It's not because they're wrong, it's because they're proof that another way exists. And nothing scares the system more than people realizing they don't have to live the way they were told. But the real question is, will you do anything about it? Or will this just be another moment where you nod in agreement, feel a spark of motivation, and then go right back to scrolling, comparing, and seeking validation from the same system that's keeping you trapped? Because that's what most people do. They hear the truth, they recognize it, but they don't act. Because acting means risk. It means discomfort. It means stepping into uncertainty without the safety net of approval. And most people aren't willing to do that. So they stay. They keep performing, keep seeking, keep waiting for some invisible permission to live on their own terms. But no one is going to give you that permission. You either take it or you live without it. And that choice will define everything. Most people will never break out of this because they are waiting for something that will never come. They tell themselves they'll start living on their own terms once things settle down, once they have more money, once they feel ready. But that moment never arrives because the system is designed to keep them in a constant state of waiting. There is always another reason to delay. There is always another excuse that feels legitimate. And before they know it, they've spent their entire life waiting for permission that was never needed in the first place. The truth is, no one is going to come save you. No one is going to pull you aside and say, hey, you can stop pretending now. You can stop performing. You can stop living for their approval. That moment doesn't happen. The people around you are too busy playing the same game, too lost in their own fears, too consumed by their own need for validation to ever free you from yours. The only way out is to decide that you're done, not later, not when it's convenient. Now, because the longer you wait, the deeper the trap becomes. And here's what makes this even more dangerous: it doesn't feel like a trap. It feels normal. It feels like you're just doing what you're supposed to do. It feels like you're being responsible, practical, realistic. But what's realistic about spending your entire life trying to meet expectations that were designed to keep you small? What's responsible about ignoring your own instincts, your own desires, your own truth, just to fit into a system that doesn't care about you? People think they're making their own choices, but they're not. They're just following a script that was handed to them before they were even old enough to question it. They go to school, get a degree, get a job, build a life that looks good on paper, all while ignoring the quiet voice inside them that keeps whispering, "This isn't it. This isn't you." But they drown it out with distractions, with busyness, with whatever keeps them from having to face the truth that they are not living. They are just existing. And this is where most people stop. They hear all of this, they feel the weight of it, and then they do nothing. Because change is uncomfortable. Because stepping outside of the system means stepping into uncertainty, and uncertainty is terrifying. But what's more terrifying? Getting to the end of your life and realizing you never actually lived it. That every decision you made was based on fear. That everything you wanted stayed locked inside you because you were too afraid of what people would think. That you had a chance to build something real, something meaningful, something that actually belonged to you, and you wasted it, all because you were chasing approval from people who were just as lost as you. So this is it. This is the moment where you either wake up or stay asleep. No more waiting, no more excuses, no more pretending that you don't have a choice. You do. You always have. The question is, will you finally take it? Or will you keep living a life that was never really yours? Most people won't take it. They'll hear all of this. They'll feel the truth of it sinking in, and then they'll distract themselves just enough to forget. They'll go back to their habits, their routines, their endless scrolling, their carefully curated lives, convincing themselves they still have time. That one day, when things are easier, when they get the right opportunity, when they finally feel ready, they'll start living differently. But that day never comes. Because the system is built to keep you stuck in the loop, forever chasing, forever waiting, forever too afraid to break the pattern. And the longer you stay in it, the harder it becomes to see that you're even trapped at all. The most dangerous cages aren't the ones with locked doors. They're the ones that make you forget you ever wanted to leave. And this is why most people die full of regret. Not because they didn't have time, not because they didn't have opportunities, but because they kept waiting for permission that was never going to come. They spent decades worrying about opinions that didn't matter, chasing approval from people who weren't even thinking about them, making decisions based on fears that were never real. And by the time they realized it, it was too late. They had spent their whole life trying to be acceptable, liked, respected, and for what? So they could reach the end and wish they had done it all differently. So they could look back and see that the only thing stopping them was their own fear. Imagine that. Imagine getting to the end and realizing the only thing that kept you from the life you wanted was a fear that never had any real power to begin with. But that's exactly where this is heading if nothing changes. There is no breakthrough moment coming. There is no perfect time. The people whose approval you seek will never give you permission to stop seeking it. The system will never encourage you to break free from it. The fear will never fully go away. So either you do it anyway, or you don't do it at all. Either you decide that your life belongs to you fully and completely, or you keep living as a reflection of what others expect. And the truth is, most people will choose the latter. Because it's easier. Because it's safer. Because it doesn't require them to face the terrifying reality that they've wasted years chasing things that never mattered. But there are a few people, just a few, who will hear this and actually do something. Who will stop waiting. Who will stop needing permission. Who will walk away from the expectations, the opinions, the constant hunger for validation, and finally live. And the only question left is, which one are you?